Chairman Song, Professor Wang, distinguished colleagues, professors, and students. It's a wonderful thing for me to be here for the first time in your college and to experience what is going on. And I have to say that that was a dynamite presentation. And it's going to be difficult for me to put it down to slightly more earthly level, but I will connect also with what you say. So, well, just a little bit about myself. I've spent more than 50 years creating brands and helping companies get a position in world markets. And 15 years ago, when some of my colleagues decided to stop working, I decided to start again. So I came to China. And I've been here now for 15 years, teaching a combination of strategies, brand creation, and design management, and of course also creating brands. The journey started in Central Academy in Beijing, GAFA, and Tsinghua, and the last 12 years I've been in Tongji, where I was also a founder member of the College for Design and Education. These are some of the brands that I have worked on over the years. I hope the translation is following.
Yes.
In time, I'll speak a little more slowly. And this is about brand power. Brand power is when you create a brand and it's there many years later. The symbol up on top, Ford, I designed in 1968, and it's still there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all of this and try to paint a picture of the challenges I see in 20 minutes. How, what, who, where, and when. We are in a world where things are changing so quickly, as we've just heard. And every time I find the meaning of design, brands, and innovation, they change it. We have to cope with new understanding, and new meaning, and new language. I trained as a graphic designer, and for a long time I used this as my own guideline, that the graphic communicator is the person who can make himself clear to himself first. Very fundamental. You have to know who you are and where you're going. We live in a world which is changing with enormous speed. And these are some of the triggers for change that we have to deal with. New political realities, globalization, large demographic shifts happening here in China and also in Europe now, echoing green issues, worldwide sourcing has to change, a new class of wealth is growing everywhere, new market entry challenges, innovation, sustainability, we've just had a lot about that. And new branding strategies are going to be required for that. Internet, and of course, AI. We are on the cusp of AI, and we're still learning about it. Some of the driving factors in this equation are changing market conditions. They are changing everywhere. There are trade wars. Just think of what's going on at the moment between China and US and the implications of that. Political upheaval. We are going through a real mess in England with Brexit. We don't know what's going to happen there yet. It certainly will change the parameters of the countries in Europe. And what about the US with Trump? Lots to say about that. Mergers and and acquisitions. Companies are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're taking over everything. Big brand domination is another factor. And we have global population rise, food and water crisis. Everyone who is involved in our environment know that the food and water crisis is on the doorstep, but we're not doing much about that yet. Finally, of course, it is you, the individual. You are the ones who are going to make these changes in the future. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about AI and going digital, as we've just heard. And that affects all the sectors we're working on. FMC, which is fast-moving consumer goods. Transport, we saw an example of that. Creating new cities. China has to build 100 new cities for 1 million people in the next 15 years. Luxury goods are dominating the markets here. And fashion is changing at a tremendous speed. When I came to Shanghai 12 years ago, there were 20 fashion shows. That was it. This year, there were 500 in 5 cities, 4 seasons. That tells you something about the number of fashion designers emerging here. So, the world is about chaos and disruption right now, in many, many ways. So, what happened to facts? Well, there is real news, and now, after 2 years on the scene, there is fake news. What is actually really going on? And there's an information blur, which is hard to deal with. So, AI is producing many things. We have Bitcoin. Some of you may know what that is. It is about shared digital international currency of trading. It's a new money that we can access to. We have blockchain. Blockchain is a digital system for executing and recording financial transactions. Everything we do now with money can be followed. And this, of course, is from the basic elements of intelligent algorithms and data, as Tom talked about. Data, data, data. Data mining. I consider China as the biggest laboratory in the world. There is more data available in China through your 21 social network systems than anywhere else in the world. And from that, we can learn a lot of things. So, welcome to cyberspace. This is the size of cyberspace in the world today. 50% of the population in China benefits from e-commerce, social media, and messaging. But the rest still have to go online. So let's bring it into the spectrum of branding, where I have been active for a long time. So when we talk about brands in China and outside, not long ago I was involved in the Brand Association of Shanghai. And the brands you see here in the middle, they are famous brands in Shanghai. They still exist. Some of you may know these brands, but I guess that your parents will know which brands these are. So what do we do with these if we want to go global, if we want to go outside? Is branding and brands another element of survival, imperative for China? And then we stretch it and we come into innovation and sustainability, because that also affects our brands. So, brands are, of course, built on trust, as you will learn with some of your professors. But who can you trust today? Who can you trust with the information that we are now getting from all kinds of different channels? So if we look at the famous brands around the world, on the right here, there's a list which you can find once a month, Fortune magazine, the leading brands in the world. It hasn't changed much in the last 20 years. For a long, long time, Coca-Cola was on top, but now it's slipped down a step, and in fact now you've got Apple on the top. In China, the leading brands have to do with a different dimension. It is about the size and strength, and it's not surprising that most of them are banks and financial institutions. The first one to creep in was Lenovo, maybe 6-7 years ago, during the time of the Olympics. So if you go outside of China, and you actually try and look at who is recognized out of China, basically, this is it. Lenovo, Haier, Huawei. There are no other brands really that are well known, except, of course, Bank of China, because that says what it is, and Air China. So Chinese companies, big companies, are now in the globalization game, and they have to go outside. So what are they going to do with their brands, and how does that work? So if you look at the proliferation of brands, I've made this on purpose a bit difficult to read, but basically this is the fast-moving goods sector, and it is controlled by maybe 10 companies: Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Mars, Kraft. So the development is that bigger and bigger groups are controlling the markets and the brands. How about the car industry? You touched on that. Well, you all recognize these brands. They exist in China. They've been here for a long time. The biggest ones in the world a few years ago were these three in America: GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Then there was a big financial crisis, and these three brands were almost wiped out. And without the intervention of America's government, they would have disappeared. So, how many brands will be left in 5 years? Well, only electric cars in 5 years, maybe. We're heading that way because some companies have declared already that that's all they will make in the future. So maybe no more private cars in 10 years. And I predict that your generation or the next one, you will not need a driving license. You won't be able to get one because you'll just get into a car and you'll say, "Take me to my office." That change is coming more rapidly than we think, but not as rapidly as maybe we want, because the technology is there, but we have to change the structure of cities to make it work. So who controls the brand? This is how it developed over a period of time. Not very long ago, the manufacturer controlled the brands. They made what they wanted, and they told the shops what they could have. Put this in, and that's where it was. Then we moved forward. In 10 years, around 1985, the retailer took over. So the retailer told the manufacturers what they would accept, or what they should make, and where they should put it. Then, you, the consumer, started moving in. Not very long ago, the consumer started to object to many brands, and there was a ground-up movement on what people wanted and what they were looking for. So you could say we're partly in that mode still, but next is AI. What will AI do to the control of the brands, where they will go, and how we handle it? So I said earlier that giants are taking over. Alibaba, Tencent, and 20 social networks in China. Outside, we have Facebook, Twitter, Netflix, and Instagram. You'll be familiar with them, but you cannot access them in China except if you have VPN. So that's a different kind of scenario. Look at the social media brand landscape. This has only happened in 10 years. Now, take a look at this map for a minute. We have emerging niche networks, functional networks, value-added networks, core networks. They're all operators. So, just pause for a second. How many brands can you remember from what I've just showed you? Do you even recognize some of them? So, brands for me is about making money. Let's not forget that. It's about positioning the market. So, there are some essential ingredients. You need a distinct brand name. Obviously, without a name, the product doesn't exist. I sometimes quote an example to my students of a pharmaceutical company in China called 999. And of course, if you say 999 in Chinese, everybody knows what it means. And it gives health to your life, more or less. Now, if this large company start to export this product, and their packaging have 999 all over it, and they say, we'll begin with a British market. 999 in England is a phone number to the police. So, obviously, that's not going to work. So many of the big Chinese companies, and this could be a role for some of your students, have to look at their brand names. So, that's number one. You have to have a clear product proposition, a clear market position. Much more research is needed to understand consumers and how they behave. A strong visual identity, effective media support, and long-term investment. It takes a long time to establish a brand, but you can also kill it in a week, in some accident or some bad product. And that's where, of course, social media comes in. Because a product comes in the market and it's discovered by somebody that is really a rotten product, they go online and bang, it's out in a week or quicker. So, do we also look at, is it the end of retail as we see it? Some of you will know the 10 RMB store. It's an interesting one because it's a Chinese, quite successful $1 store trying to present a Japanese image and a Japanese identity. We can discuss why and how that happened. And then, of course, we have Tencent, Alibaba, and outside, Amazon and eBay. Amazon has become the biggest company in the world, overtaking in asset value Apple and Microsoft and the others. So another thing that you have to learn is new materials. How many of you have heard about graphene? One professor, I expect that. Has any of you students heard about graphene? No. Well, you have to know about new materials. And graphene was developed from the pencil, the graphite pencil. And it's from the actual graphite. Two professors in England discovered this through some accidental experiments. They could produce a new material. And they got the Nobel Prize for this. It was only a few years ago. I suggest that you look up graphene on the internet and you learn about this. It's the strongest material ever produced. and it's like a film. And this film is like cellophane. You can put a pencil on the film and an elephant on top, and it will hold it. It's 300 times stronger than steel. It's also the most effective conduit of electricity. And there are now 150 universities collaborating to find ideas on how to use this material. So in the field of design, obviously you must be up to date on new materials. This could be used in the future for making cars, maybe airplanes, many, many other applications in health, datacom, energy. So the subject of new materials is vital in whatever you do, in product design for starters, but also in fashion, for example. New types of materials are emerging. So I call this my 7 dimensions for winning by design and innovation. Number 1, most companies, and you're talking about industrial development in this area, many Chinese companies are going through this phase. You need to have clear design management programs. Because many times a product will come into a company or an idea, but there is no structure to put it to work. That's number 1. And I think there also needs to be some more learning and education about design management and how that works. You have to conduct human-centered design research. In the field of health, for example, where lots of advances are made, it's all about understanding how things work in hospitals, old age care. Research is fundamental. That's also true, of course, for products. 3, design, invent, and create value-added quality products. We have to move up market. We have to provide quality that can be used by everybody. Create viable global brand names. You have to have names that function in different markets. Define and develop solid strategies. Know what you're going. Know where your customers are. Know where your target is. Finally, and of course, as we've learned this morning, more important than ever, you have to use and learn to use the new digital technologies. And I think that's going to take some time. I'm at that level now where it's hard for me to do it because the new technologies, some of them, are tough to break into. The other thing which is very important is collaboration and work with universities and academies in China. It's beginning to be more because it's partly driven from the top by the government. Because the government are very clear saying innovation and sustainability is a fundamental need of the country. Now, who's going to do that? Where are the capabilities to really innovate and create and to have sustainable long-term programs? So, where are we going next? 2020, we're there. 2035, 2050. Where are the next thresholds, which include everything that we heard before? So just take a quick think about our past and how things are developing. In 1784, we got steam, water, mechanical production and equipment. 1870, division of labor, electricity, mass production. 1969, a while ago, electronics, IT, automated production. Now, we're in the digital age, already, mass communication. Social networks, online retail payment systems, Just think about WeChat. WeChat 3 years ago didn't exist. Now, nobody has any money in their pockets anymore. WeChat is a complete new financial system. It's amazing. The future, well, 2020, we've just heard the beginning of cyber physical systems. That's going to take us a long way. And 2035, probably not very long ago, artificial intelligence takes over. And we have some ideas of what that might be now after your presentation, which I thought was really brilliant. I have a simple guiding principle that I've used in my career as a designer, creating brands, and also in my new career as a professor, only 14 years. And it goes like this. Listen. We have to learn to listen. And that is about everything. We have to listen to who our customers are. We have to listen to the world around us and how that is changing. Then, think. Listen and spend some time thinking. And of course, after this, you can start doing some creative work. And finally, act. So, listen, think, create, and act. Take creative risks in the future, and I say, go for it. Now, you may wonder why I'm wearing this T-shirt to finish my presentation. It's about fast and slow. And many, many hundreds of years ago, one of the great emperors of Rome, his slogan was, hurry slowly, fast and slow. So, you have to also think about this world. Some things we have to do really quick, but we also have to sometimes think. Because if we go too fast, we'll screw it up and we'll make mistakes. So, that's my message for you in just about 20 minutes. Thank you for listening.